Now, if you go back to 1 Peter 20, it says, Christ, who was foreordained before the foundation of the world in Abraham. Now, this dividing of the body started in the foundation work. Now, remember, I told you that in Daniel 4, we read about the tree that was chopped down and that man became a beast. Now, in Genesis, in the foundation of the world, in the covenant making with Abraham, we find this scenario. And he said to Abraham, take me a heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. Now, please note, there was 3 animals and 2 doves. Now, at this point, it was the time of Abraham. Noah was already the raven, so there was 2 doves left. Now, look what happens. The 3 animals were divided and laid open. And he took unto him these, divided them in the midst, and laid each piece against another. But the birds he divided not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abram drove them away. Now, Satan tried everything to prevent the Christ from dying. But we know Israel's carcasses fell in the desert with Moses, and now it fell in the desert again. But God would not let this thing stop from being happening. Abraham drove all the birds away so that this offering can go on. And when the sun was going down, the sun was going down on the old, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham. Now, in the Bible, sleep resembles death. So Abraham literally went into what God was going to do. He had this revelation, because this is why he said to his son, my son, God himself will provide the lamb, because the covenant was made with him. A deep sleep fell on Abraham, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And what happened here is, this is absolute a picture of what happened on the cross, when Jesus was literally torn apart, and he literally had to go into hell, open the prison doors, and come out. This was all to do with the dividing of the body. And this was now emphasized when Moses hit the rock, and the rock split open. And now, you know what happens? We are back in the New Testament, where he says there are 3 in heaven in agreement, the Father, the Spirit, and the Son. And now there's 3 in agreement on earth. The blood, the water, and the Spirit. And these 3 are one. And what it actually means is that heaven and earth is all in agreement. And what Jesus came to do, he took that division so that this unity can come together again. Now, in Genesis, when the woman came out of the man, the principle was laid down that the man will leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife. And this is what literally happened. Jesus had to leave the father and cling to his wife. So he became a man. He became in this beastly human race. He became like us. He became sin. For what the law could not do, God sent his son in sinful flesh to condemn sin in the flesh. The worst verse in the Bible is where the separation came between the Father and the Son. He had to separate. He had to separate unto destruction, to restore the separation unto life and growth again. He had to be following the full route. The sun had to go down. The first Adam had to be totally destroyed, that the second man, the quickening spirit, can start bringing the new creation man. There's one verse in the Bible that's maybe the worst verse, and it describes the separation of the Father and the Son unto destruction in order to bring back the restoration where separation brings growth. It's the worst time ever. It's called the climax of the ages. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And the people that stood around said, oh, he's talking about Elijah and he's talking about this. And they didn't understand. Till the earth shook, the veil rent, the rocks was rent. All the rocks was rent, and the people, in Revelation it says the rocks, the kings cried out, let the rocks fall on us. And this is where God builded his house on the rock. And the place where he built his house is where people build their house on the rock, and the rock is built on the rock. So this is Isaiah that cries out and says, where is my rest? Where is the house that you will build for me? And this all started right here. And the volume of the book brings in this picture. Now, what God has done for us, he has now placed his spirit in our spirit. When he arose, he said to Mary, touch me not, I'm not yet ascended to my Father. Go to my brethren and say to them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. So the separation that Jesus took for us brought us back into unity with the Father. And God will never, ever leave us again. He says, Paul writes, and he says, nothing will separate us from the love of God. Not famine, not COVID. He says, not even death can separate us from the love of God. I love how the Hebrews writer tells it. He says, let your conversation be without covetousness. Now, covetousness is what happens in the realm of destruction. He says, be content with such things as you have. For he hath said, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Let your character, that's what you are, part of his body. This is my body, but my spirit man is part of his body. Let your character, your moral essence, your inner nature be free from the love of money. Shun greed. Be financially ethical. Being content with what you have, for he has said, I will never, under any circumstance, desert you, never give you up or leave you without support, nor will I in any degree leave you helpless, nor will I forsake or let you down, or relax my hold on you. Assuredly not. Never again will there be separation unless you really want to turn back to darkness. If you really do not want to hear his voice. Now the Bible says that the days of ignorance he sees over. And that is why he came and he restored humanity. But now his voice knocks on every door. And I'm telling you, some people just get it on their deathbeds, but his voice is ever there. The sooner you answer this voice, the bigger you can grow in this life. And there's going to come a time, like it said in the genealogy of Adam, the seventh from Adam, Enoch never saw death. And 1 Corinthians 15 says, I show you a mystery. We shall not all die, but we shall all be changed. And that's the point that all this progression and times on earth is working towards. Perfection, rest for your soul. The end of your faith is the salvation of your soul.